And hello again and welcome back. Today we're looking at a little indie visual novel called Vengeful Heart, which is made in a PC 88, 98 kind of aesthetic, which I really enjoy. I don't really know much about the story. I don't think I've even read the description. I've just looked at the images and immediately went, well, this is a game I'd like to play, so I'll just go right in here. But from the images, it really did look like it had that PC 98 and 88 kind of aesthetic. So that might be a very interesting game to play in this modern day and age. Josephine Lace was late for work. Cursing, she shot out of bed like a supersonic plane and stumbled into the bathroom. Her apartment was small, with just enough room for a bed, a table and a screen. The house was pretty old, so most functions only worked through an interface in the wall, lights, heating and the alarm she should have had. The screen was newish and large enough to nearly cover the wall it was on. In the bathroom there was a separate panel that dealt with her water supply and her laundromat. She'd been thinking about getting one of those roofs that portrayed a starry sky on request, but they were so expensive, maybe once she got a raise. She managed to slam herself pretty hard against the bathroom wall. Damn, the floor was slippery. She opened the plastic panel and ordered soap and some shampoo. Of all the days, she thought. Soap began to pour out of the ceiling and she rubbed it around her body. Halfway through, she realised she was still wearing her pyjama pants and cursed again. Just as she got them off, she realised she was still wearing her wristwatch. She threw it across the apartment onto the bed just in time for shampoo to fall from the ceiling. Closing her eyes, she focused on rubbing the shampoo. She had to look presentable today. I thought I skipped there something for a second. She was going to meet Francis. With her eyes still closed, she turned her face up to meet the cleansing pour of water about to come, and waited. A loud beep announced her that something was wrong. She opened one eye very carefully and inspected the small screen. Error, water could not be delivered. Please contact water supplier. What the fuck? Fucking company, someone had screwed up on the worst possible day. Then she got shampoo in her eye. Fuck. She had no time to contact anyone. Still half blind, she grasped for a towel and wiped off all the soap and most of the shampoo. She thought about her options. If she had more time, she could have stopped at a gym or swimming hall, but she didn't. And those were places where people went to get their clothes stolen. There was no way in hell she would ask to use Mr. Kendrick's shower. Not that the old man wasn't perfectly nice, she just didn't know how to speak to old people. She knew nothing about her neighbour across the hall except that the sign on the door said JANIS. The only real option was to rush to work, shower there and do her best with makeup. Why did this have to happen on her biggest day yet? Maybe that's just how things go. Pressing another button, she opened the thin metal curtain that gave her the slightest respite from the neon storm that was the polis, and embraced the view. Yeah, this really gives that certain feeling like you had in those older games. A lot of the time you had imagine the screen being a square, just a 4x3 square, just to fit the monitor, and most of it was like a panel with buttons that you could press on, and it usually had a tiny little screen where you would actually see the environment that would change because it was so expensive in a way to make a lot of really large images and just too much work to constantly do. So they met halfway and kind of made like a back panel like this. I assume this will always stay the same, and just had it changed in the little view window. But in this case, they made it a little bit more widescreen. The sun was still rising, so she had the chance to admire the constant cacophony of messages trying to get her attention. She'd seen them so many times she no longer noticed them, yet she knew that if even one of the signs went out, she would notice instantly. She turned her gaze to admire the pulsing rainbow that was the net of water pipes running above street level. No other city had this feature. She slipped her fancy suit, packed a bag of makeup and a few nutrition bars, no time to cook. She almost forgot her ID. The block she lived in was a grey square of concrete and steel that anyone would consider ugly as hell. But not Josephine, she liked practical things, and her house was that. There was a small courtyard and apartments all around it. 4 different doorways led to 4 different streets. There were 8 floors and 4 sections. Every apartment was identical. She was lucky to have one all for herself. She liked the courtyard. It was small and nothing grew on it. But it was at least calm. Yeah, I read that correctly. In the summer, the program running the house deployed a massive shade umbrella that kept much of the apartments pleasantly cool. There was electric air conditioning, of course, but it didn't always work. In the hallway, she ran into Mr. Kendrick. The old man was wearing his morning robe and standing out about, deeply unsettled as if something was deeply wrong. "Miss Lace, can you help me? My apartment doesn't work." "What's wrong with your home, Mr. Kendrick?" "Well, you see, this morning I awoke to the sound of traffic full 15 minutes earlier than usual." "Mr. Kendrick, please, I'm late for work." "Oh, I'm sorry. As I was saying, I read the paper and then slept for some more." "Mr. Kendrick, to the chase, please. What's the matter with your home?" "Oh yes, you see, when I woke up I tried to shower, but there was no water. I couldn't even make coffee. So I came out to see if someone would know about the pipes. Don't you work with pipes, miss?" "Not really, Mr. Kendrick. Don't worry, I'm sure they'll fix it soon enough." "Alright, one more thing, Miss Lace. Could you please help me with..." "I have to run now. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Kendrick. Ask someone else. Ask Miss Janis. Or Mr. Janis." "Who's Mr. Janis?" A young woman came down the hallway looking amused. She was a bit shorter than Josephine, but clearly worked out much more. Josephine felt a sting of guilt as she tried to remember the last time she'd gone jogging. The young woman had short hair, rough hands and durable clothes that had military background written all over them. She seemed simultaneously relaxed and tense. Her body couldn't have been calmer as she walked along the hallway, but her eyes were constantly scouting widely. Her most memorable feature, however, was an amused smile that never left her face, as if there was something inherently funny in everything and everybody. "I take it you're Miss Janis?" "Call me Rani, what's the fuzz?" "You see, I woke up to the sound of traffic." "The water isn't coming. Look, Mr. Kendrick, I need to run now. I have a meeting." And Josephine rushed to the elevator and closed the doors. Some meeting. "Miss Janis, please, I locked myself out of my home." "Oh, I guess that's my problem now. Would you like a cup of tea?" I like the art style as well. It's very fitting with the rest of the art style that you have, the dithering that you have here to show that there's a little bit of shadow on their clothing and stuff like that. It's really nice. Oh shit. Josephine closed her eyes as the elevator descended. She found the electric hum soothing. Her stomach grumbled. She hoped there would be time to get a bite. Outside, she took a deep breath of city air and filled her lungs with the smell of exhaust pipes and greasy street meals. It was still rush hour. She joined the high tide of people flooding the streets and flowing towards the trams. Usually she tried to get up early and missed the endless ocean of grumpy, tired, busy people operating on their first cup of coffee. Today she was somewhat glad there were so many people. No one had time or energy to focus on her. No one would see that her still shampooed hair or her yesterday's clothing. Amidst the sea of people she was invisible. She stepped into a pond. Cold, filthy water instantly made it through her shoe and socks, chilling her toes. Crap. A trickle of water fell on her head. She looked up. There was a water pipe above her. It was leaking badly. The pipe was pretty high and she couldn't make up the company name, but she knew it was Neptis. The colours had been Francis's idea. Water pipes in the city had long ago been rebuilt to run high above the streets. It was too easy to drill and steal from the underground pipes. But the black metal tubes running in rows above all the major streets weren't very pretty to look at. Francis had come up with the idea to replace them with transparent plastic. He then added glowing chemicals to the water so that as it flowed it pulsed in vibrant colours. Sorry, I missed that. Brand approval had skyrocketed and the claims of health hazard were tenuous at best. Now the pipes were a trademark of the city that no one would want to take down. Francis was a genius. And the pipes were everywhere. It was impossible to not see them. For the last few years, the entire city had lived in the glow of pulsing neon lights, safe from the rain under the blanket. For the last few years, the entire city had lived in the glow of pulsing neon lights, safe from the rain under the blanket of pipes. Okay, that was just a bit weird how I had to read that. It had led to some interesting incidents. For one, advertisers had complained that people could no longer see their ads. The solution had been devilishly simple. For a price, Neptis installed a device that turned off the glow on certain sections, giving people a better look at the huge ad boards. Last year it had been decided that the city would no longer maintain streetlights. Why would it? Neptis was lighting the city anyway and asked only for a modest compensation. Everybody won. Suddenly she noticed that someone was standing still next to her. It was an old woman, clearly too poor to have an apartment in this district. She was holding a plastic canister. You shouldn't steal. The old woman shrugged. Josephine didn't have time to argue. She continued towards the station. The old woman wasn't alone. There were at least half a dozen others with bottles or pots. The police would show up soon and it was smarter to not be around when they did. The tram station was actually two stations. There was the subway leading downtown and the tram leading uptown. Josephine was one of the millions who worked upper than they could afford to live. She went in line to the trams. The tram had the security checkpoint, the subway didn't. She didn't have to stand in line for long. There were at least 20 machines and it took less than a second to identify a passenger. There were also at least 10 security guards. Josephine nodded to the closest one but said nothing. Something about the security industry attracted men who despised educated, well-paid women. Josephine showed her ID to the machine and then looked straight into the camera. Josephine Lace, hydraulic engineer, Neptus Incorporated, cleared for passage, said a metallic but pleasant voice. A green light flashed and the doors opened. Josephine ran for the platform. As usual, the tram was absolutely packed with frowning people. Very few spoke at all. Guards were pushing people in to fit as many as possible. Josephine quickly slipped her wallet under her shirt and grabbed her watch with both hands. Pickpockets loved the tram. Not the kind of pickpockets that are seen in movies, rugged poor people with quick fingers. You needed to have a reason to go uptown. These were neatly dressed half-time pickpockets. She lost 2 watches before she learned to be careful, though pickpockets overwhelmingly favoured tourists. There was just something about non-locals, especially countrysiders, that made them an obvious target. The tram shot forwards with rush hour speed and Josephine would have fallen if there had been space to do that. The neon lights and towering buildings flashed by with great speed. The only constant was the glowing water pipe running along the tram route. It was foggy again. Josephine checked the air quality on her watch. She should have been wearing a mask today. The air was not good. It would be better at the other end. The tram route rose at a steep angle. There were pipes above that one could grab. Josephine wasn't that dumb. Grabbing the pipe meant lowering your guard, which meant someone would steal your stuff. She would have to maintain a balance. Just read that wrong. And every station the route leveled for a while so people could get out and a new batch could come on board. Josephine couldn't help but feel a little superior to the people who stayed out before her. She worked at the very centre, almost as up as one could get. The tram was still full when Josephine got out. She instantly noticed how the air was different up here. The air didn't smell and there was no fog. Instead, the rising sun shone brightly on the white and glass buildings. Even the water pipes had stopped glowing. Up here the water was clear. She didn't have time to ponder on it. She bolted and ran as fast as she could. Down where she lived, which was still comfortably around the middle, the streets were crowded and narrow. Up here there were only plazas and huge monumental buildings. The gardens were one of the biggest. It was impossible to miss them. The headquarters of Neptus Incorporated was not just a cold giant clad in steel and glass. They were lush. The gardens were called that because of the myriad terraces that were green with plant life of all sorts. Trees, bushes and vines covered its outer walls. Between the terraces, thin screens of water fell from one level to the next, giving some privacy to the people working within. The building itself was like a pyramid of huge steps. The higher your elevator took you, the smaller the floor, the more exclusive. Today Josephine would get to the top for the first time and she had shampoo in her hair. The gardens were surrounded by a plaza where more trees and bushes stood on the artificial ground, fed by artificial little streams. The streams crisscrossed the plaza in a seemingly random pattern, combining into small ponds and separating again. Josephine was in a hurry, so she didn't follow the winding path around the fake garden. She hopped over the ponds and ran across the lawn, raising eyebrows among the security guarding the entrance. The guard said nothing but raised her eyebrows as a sweaty and gasping Josephine arrived at the machine and it cleared her. Her heart was pounding like hell. I really should work out more, she thought. Inside was calm. People were either in their offices or hadn't shown up yet. Good, perhaps no one would see her. There was a shower attached to the gym. Josephine liked working at a place where there was a gym just for the employees. There was a certain prestige to it, not that she'd ever had the time to use it. She looked at her watch. 9 minutes. It might be enough. There was no one else to use the elevator. Good. The gym was on the 4th floor. She stood there anxiously as the elevator rose slowly. She had a hard time standing still. She saw herself in the mirror. The shampoo had now dried on her hair, forming a white net of sorts. Her cheeks were red from running and her eyes still black from a nearly sleepless night. She'd been having those recently. Her nose was leaking like the water pipe on her home street. On the 2nd floor The elevator stopped. She quickly adjusted her pose to be casual. Everyone had days like this. It wasn't anyone's business. The doors opened and a young man walked in. Josephine froze. It was Francis. God, he's handsome. Look at that. Look at that hair. God. Francis, a busy morning, Miss Lace? No, sir. I mean, yes, but nothing unusual. Just ran my morning rounds. I'm going to shower now. Exercise before work is so refreshing. I go swimming every morning. Do you swim? Not very well, I'm afraid. More of a sunbather. I don't blame you. Seawater is freezing. I hope your presentation is ready. Yes, sir. I'll pop by my office to pick up the slides. You might want to hurry. It seems you have 6 minutes. Josephine was horrified. She wouldn't make it. Not through a shower, getting dressed, putting on makeup and going by her office. Francis laughed. Worry not, Miss Lace. I'll go by your office and stall the meeting. Where are the slides? Thank you so much, sir. I left them on the drive at my desk. I'll be there on time. Thank you again so much. No trouble at all. Just get ready. You just get ready. Josephine, this is your floor. The ladies' showers are to the right. Francis was right. They were on the 4th floor. She rushed out, thanking him again and blushing red as the traffic light. Oh, Miss Lace? Josephine turned around, more or less dying of embarrassment. Yes? You might want to wear sports clothes when you run. You'll be much more comfortable. Thank you, sir. The doors closed before she could finish, leaving her standing alone in the hallway. She made a complete fool of herself. Why today? As she finally showered, she couldn't stop thinking about Francis. Francis Brabeck was a celebrity among businessmen. He was young, he was ambitious, and he seemingly never made mistakes. In just 6 years, he made Neptus the largest water provider in the world. By all accounts, he should have been a huge dick. Probably is. And yet here he was, a billionaire boss offering help to a subordinate out of sheer goodwill at the cost of working time. And damn, he was handsome. Of course he is. Josephine dried herself and got dressed. She didn't have time to dry her hair. She hastily put on some makeup in the elevator. She was late. There was a security check in the elevator before anyone could get to the highest floor. Josephine's ID had been temporarily updated to allow access. She arrived 2 minutes late, but no one seemed to mind. She realised they were the kind of people who were never in a hurry. They knew others would wait. The men and women in the room, all wearing neat suits, were chatting and having a coffee. Francis was among them, clearly mid-joke. Miss Lace, could you've arrived? It's time to start, I think. Francis gestured for Josephine to sit on the empty chair next to him. The meeting room was the highest point in the gardens and one of the highest in the city. The room was oval with a balcony circling around it. All the walls were clear glass. A sheet of falling water, the highest of the waterfalls in the garden, circumvented the room, slowly disappearing in one section while appearing in the next. All of it was quite hypnotic. But the most spectacular part was the view. From up here, Josephine could see the golden domes of the City Hall, the luxurious Musa finance towers, even the grey headquarters of Sentinel Security. Everything bathed in the rays of early morning. She was so high up now that frost formed on the edges of the windows. Far below, she could see swarms of people filling the plazas, each of them rushing to work on one of these magnificent works of architecture. There were helicopters in the sky whisking the wealthy straight from the penthouse to office. In the centre of town, there weren't even commercials, everything was pure. Francis's voice snapped her back to the office. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Josephine Lace. Miss Lace is one of our foremost hydraulic engineers. Josephine smiled and nodded to the audience of 24 business sharks. All of them looked friendly, but in a way that a carnivorous plant might look beautiful. Their eyes only ever saw dollars. Josephine is going to explain our new discoveries regarding groundwater, but before that, let's take a step back. I want to ask you, what is the greatest weapon a dictator can possess? The room was both baffled and annoyed. Clearly political theory was not worth the time of these people. The obvious answer would be nukes or gas or some other horrific contraption. But I would argue that the mightiest weapon the tyrant can have is control of water. More confused faces, including Josephine's. Throughout history, and especially now, being able to decide who gets to drink, who gets to wash, and who gets to water their crops is absolute power. Starvation and disease can subdue populations far more efficiently than bombs. In times past, this meant filling up wells, damming rivers, destroying irrigation. Today, all one has to do is press a button. Now I ask you, is that a power you want the state to have? Some in the audience began nodding approvingly. Me neither. It's the great task of our generation to liberate water from the control of governments. Water is a human right. The only way to protect the people from abuse is to take the water in the hands of the people. Fortunately, we live in a democracy and our leaders understand that it is their responsibility to give up this power for everyone's sake. Which is why, starting yesterday, Neptus will begin the process of transferring control of groundwater from the state to the people. And who can distribute the water more efficiently to everyone than those who are already doing it? Well, no one. The shareholders gave a long applause for their young prophet. Clearly they were very happy with this particular brand of political theory. Francis calmed them down. Of course, there will be some initial costs. Fortunately, we'll soon be responsible for far more water than you might realise. Josephine, please. Josephine stood up and nodded to the audience. Her graphs appeared on one of the windows. Thank you, Francis, Mr. Brabeck. Now, as you can see here, the presentation wasn't long. Josephine delivered a very concise record of all the things to consider with the new water resources. The highest cost was real estate. Land in the city was incredibly expensive, yet it was the most efficient to drill there. A new central water supply would also be needed. A building that would be a drilling station, a purification plant, a bottling station, and a starting point of all new pipes. She knew it sounded boring, but she couldn't mask her excitement over it. How the city got its water would be changed forever, and she would be the one designing it. When she'd been given the task a year ago, it had seemed impossible. She wasn't even 30 yet. How was she in charge? But she had pulled it off. No one can take that pride from her, even though no one else in the world probably cared. The board, for once, seemed only interested in the last section, which wasn't even Josephine's work, but a cost-benefit analysis from someone in finances. They were happy enough to applaud for her as well. As the audience was leaving, satisfied that their money was being used adequately, Francis approached her. Well done, Josephine. Few people could have kept their cool when meeting people this important. Josephine felt her cheeks burning a bit. Thank you, Mr. Brabeck. I thought it was a bit dry. Could have used some jokes. And how many jokes are there to be made about plumbing? Not very many, but still I couldn't captivate them the way you do. Captivating investors is what I do for a living, but you have no reason to feel bad. What you're doing is revolutionary in our field. Within a couple of months, everyone in the city, millions of people, will get their every glass of water from your pipes. I know that. That's what bothers me. Our work is going to change the city forever. Erase dirty drinking water. Get everyone access. They didn't seem to realise it. Investors, at least all the good ones, have a calculator for ears, brain and heart. The only part they see is the money they'll make. I could speak of liberal ethics all day and they could only hear numbers. Instead of art, they see price tags. Instead of food calories to fuel the calculator. You make them sound like robots and they might hear you. Nah, they already left, and I mean it as a compliment of sorts. They're the best at what they do. What they do is best suited for robots. You speak like you have nothing in common with them, Mr. I have a degree in finance. Corporate slave or not, I can still enjoy a good meal. Speaking of which, would you like to have dinner sometime? Oh dear, was Francis asking her out? And how was this going so well for her? Yes, I think he's being a sneaky little bastard and trying to pull her attention away from where she's about the project. I would love to. Something ridiculously expensive and low on nutrients. So we can see if we are still more efficient than machines. I like it. How about the day after tomorrow? Sure, I have to check. Of course, my secretary will be in touch. Can I have my chauffeur pick you up? That sounds very nice. I'll see you then. Yeah, I'm expecting him to backstab her very, very early in the story. She left the room in a hurry before she would embarrass herself and ruin this. Francis had asked her out. She hoped his secretary wouldn't spread the news. Half the women in the office would hate her immediately. The rest of the day flew by in a heartbeat. In fact, time flew by so quickly that Josephine found herself working almost an hour later than she was supposed to. Of course, there was plenty of work to do. The expansion had to be planned and miles of new pipes had to be built. As the clock struck 6, she suddenly realised how hungry she was. She hadn't eaten anything after her very abrupt breakfast. She ordered food to the office and kept working until dark. By the time she left, there was no one else in the office. She took the subway home. The tram uptown had already closed. The upper district's need for cheap labour had been satisfied, and now it was time for the plebeians to leave. Normally she hated the subway. They were dirtier, noisier, and there was no security. From her seat she could see the gardens rising above much of the city. To think she'd been on the top of that building just hours ago. The waterfalls around the town reflected back the lights of the city like a vertical lake. She could see the reflections of surrounding buildings. It was like a mirror that made everything seem more beautiful than it was. Josephine squinted her eyes. She was almost certain she could still see the silhouette of a man in the highest room, surrounded by a halo of neon light. Was Francis still working? The subway dove into the tunnel before she could be sure. Now she was suddenly filled by deep dissatisfaction. Francis wouldn't have to travel down for the night. He would stroll just across the plaza to the luxury hotel where he permanently lived. Before that, he might catch dinner with all those investors from the meeting at some local restaurant. And in the morning he would take the elevator back to the top, stopping only for his morning swim. What should have been a pleasant trip home suddenly felt like falling into the deepest abyss on the planet. She had been to the top. She knew she wanted back. She felt her break was close. She was about to design the new water network. She was going on a date with her boss. In the crystal ball that was a subway window, she saw a promotion in the near future. She'd been dealt a good hand, now she had to play it well. Just gonna take a quick sip of water, because I'm getting a bit sore from talking so much. I love the music as well, it fits so well with this particular style. The streets in the home district were almost empty. There were food trucks and cabs, and automated stores still open, but not very many customers. There was the occasional drunk, and in the back alleys, though hardly visible, some shadier figures. The type that show up after dark, and who hang out in the well-guarded areas but try so hard to not be noticed. Someone had fixed the leaking water pipe. There were no thieves in line anymore. "Halt right there," someone shouted. Josephine froze. She owned a taser but had left it at home. "Name, occupation and place of residence please," the voice said. Cold and robotic, but a man's voice nonetheless. A tired man's who's been standing there all day. A security guard. Josephine let out a deep sigh of relief. "Josephine Lace, hydraulic engineer, Neptus Incorporated. I live right there across the street." "Papers please," said the man who Josephine could now see. He was a young man, probably younger than Josephine. He seemed nice enough. Josephine showed her ID to the small machine the man was holding. It cleared her. "Alright, you can go. Sorry for the inconvenience, Miss Lace. Say, you wouldn't know what the commotion in your building's about." "Commotion? No, I'm just getting home from work. There'd been noises all evening, probably nothing though. Good night." Josephine frowned as she hastened her steps towards home. There wasn't just a commotion in the courtyard, there was everyone. Mr. Kendrick was there, and so was the family from floor 3 and everyone else she'd seen. As well as everyone she hadn't. Someone had brought garden chairs to the yard. Obviously this was supposed to be an emergency meeting of residents. People were talking on top of each other in angry voices as if everyone had been a manager giving instructions. Except no one was. "What the hell is wrong here? There hasn't been any water since last night." "What? It's still gone?" "Yeah, it's getting suspicious. I asked around and no other building has this problem." Josephine, so the problem would have to be in this house, in our pipes. "So you know something about pipes?" "A thing or two." Josephine turned to see Miss JANIS again. She spoke with a quiet, almost distant voice. "We didn't introduce ourselves in the morning, Lace." Josephine. "RANI JANIS, Sergeant." "You're with the military?" "Was. Now I'm just grumpy, because I haven't showered today." "I hear you. I had to shower at work." "And you will have to tomorrow if something isn't done. There's been no response from the company yet." "Well, the most likely reason is a failure of a contamination seal." "A what now?" "It's a door that closes if it detects something that shouldn't be in the drinking water. The seal closes and the water in the pipe is pulled back to be sanitized." "Okay, so what's the deal with you and pipes? No one knows that much about water ducts." "I'm a hydraulic engineer. I designed the pipes." "I see, so would you be able to fix the problem if you saw it?" "No way, I mean I Probably, but I'm not going to the maintenance. Why not? Seems like there's a job to be done. I don't like tight spaces, I'm claustrophobic. You mean you don't like elevators? Elevators are fine, anything small and I can't breathe. Why don't we go together? I can hold your hand if you like. I can also you also carry me if I hyperventilate. You bet I can. This wasn't a fun idea at all. The only way to access the pipes in the building was going through a maintenance section which was dark, damp and most of all cramped space between two walls. Josephine looked around. She could feel the tension on the courtyard. The residents were really on edge and all they had to do was not shower for a day. Well, it doesn't look like they're going to achieve anything here. I get they're pissed off, but why are they yelling? They're scared. People are so used to comfort they sometimes forget how artificial it is. Take away power, the net, or water and suddenly everyone realises how close they really are to cavemen. They get doubly scared when no one in the system seems to care. Should we check on the pipes and bring some comfort to them? In a moment, she climbed aboard the trash can and clapped her hands. There was no effect. One old man looked at her and then continued arguing with his neighbour. Listen up. Rani had a sergeant's voice. People listened to it. Suddenly Josephine had her neighbour's attention. It was frightening. Evening, I'm Josephine. I live on the 4th floor. I know we're all mad, but this is no one's fault. We need to be calm. I'm an engineer. Me and Sergeant JANIS are going to maintenance to check the pipes. It would be great if some of you went to the store and bought as many bottles of water as you can. That way, all of us can at least get something to drink while we clear this mess. And talking about having something to drink, I'm just going to have a sip right now. Oh, that's good water. Oh. God, did you really forget how much you like it if you've been talking for a while? Where was I now? That way, all of us can at least get something to drink while we clear this mess. A man stood up. He was in his 50s. He had a belly that was obviously made of beer and mean-looking tearing eyes. Can you fix this? I have kids who need to wash. I'll try my best, but I can't promise anything. If nothing else works, I'll call some people I know, see if they can figure it out. The man nodded approvingly. Well then, I'll go to the shops if someone helps me carry the canisters. Mr. Kendrick stood up as well. There used to be a well a block from here, water for everyone. I think they covered it, but it's still there. Great, we'll open the well and carry us some water. No, don't open the well. Why? It's a public well. It's a Neptus well, we can't go sealing. Since when can you own a well? The water comes from the ground. Since yesterday. So now they're in the maintenance section, yeah. The maintenance section was just as dark as Josephine had imagined and even more crammed. It was an empty space in the southeast corner of the building running all the way from the ground to the roof. There was a basement in the building, but a basement was no use if all the pipes were running up at the ceiling. The downside was that some apartments no longer had windows. The air was heavy and carried a rotting smell. There were no windows, why would there be? Only plumbers ever came here. The pipes ran high at the 8th floor. The only way there was by ladder from the very bottom and then along a narrow bridge for nearly the length of the house. Sorry also if I sound very stuffy, it's pollen season and I'm just in absolute agony. I can't even see the pipes from down here. Don't worry, I got a light. Rani pointed her steady army flashlight up. They could see the water pipes but only barely. Strange. What is? The water has glowing chemicals in it. It should reflect back the light. Unless the pipe is completely empty. I guess we'll have to climb and see, eh? Rani seems strangely pleased with this situation. Don't we have a housekeeper or something? This climb is ridiculous. It'll be fine. The ladder looks safe enough. Just come right after me. Actually, I'm going to have to go first. Look, I know I said I would carry you, but I might not be able to catch you if you fall. I have to check the pipes, remember? Oh yeah, well don't worry about that. There's a ledge up there, unless you're scared of heights too. Oh, try not to look down. Oh, poor lass. The climb was excruciating. RANI couldn't use a flashlight when climbing, so they just felt their way up. The ladders were at least built in bits. At each floor there was a small pad for resting and catching any falling workers. The ladders themselves were made of cold steel and were somehow really slippery, even though there wasn't supposed to be water anywhere in the house. Drops of water even fell on Josephine while she ascended slowly. But the height wasn't really the problem, it was the space. 4 separate times Josephine tried to lean back to see how much there was space behind her. Every time she instantly hit the wall. The wall in front of her was the only thing she could see clearly. It was covered in mold and way too close to her face. How is there so much mold here? Is our home really in this shape? Do we really not have a housekeeper? People are expensive. I think there's a program doing the rounds in all the systems, but I can't see mold. Someone should rebuild this section with an elevator. Damn right. Hey, how were you so busy this morning? Honestly, I was trying to impress my boss. Did it work? Well, he asked me out, so I guess it did. How was Mr. Kendrick? Forgot his keys. Again? Crap, was he mad at me? Nah, just confused. I invited him for tea, which I couldn't make without water. We got the program to open this door around noon. So quickly, for me it always takes forever, with the identification and all. I picked up some computer tricks when I was deployed. He began to annoy me as soon as we ran out of war stories. I've hosted him too, he has good and bad days. Well, today he just went on about how immigrants steal jobs from veterans like me and him. I think he heard it on TV. I don't think he realised I'm Indian. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I had a really important meeting and I didn't realise he'd forgotten his keys again and there. Watch out, there's something sharp. I found it too. And they climbed on, resting at every interval. Josephine could see that RANI could have gone much faster than her. For once she kept hitting her behind with her head. At the 5th floor they took a long break. So you were in the army? Yeah, engineer corps for 3 years. Engineer, are we in the same business? Well, I couldn't lay water pipes, I can blow them up though. I guess the army has different needs. I spent most of my time protecting oil and gas pipes from insurgents. So you just walked around with a gun? Drove, then we laid electric fences and built launch pads for drones. At night we watched the fireworks. I assume that's army slang for something bad. You would be right, the rebels would sneak in at night, and if the drones caught them, well, fireworks. To be honest, we rarely caught them though. That sounds rough. Army's life's supposed to be rough, but that's in the past. Now I mostly do security jobs here. Doesn't that feel like a downgrade to protect people and then be a security grunt? Never said I protected people. What I do now isn't that different from what I did there, just far less dangerous. So what do you do again? Something with pipes? We should get going. 3 more floors to go. Yeah, deflect the question. Working for a water company wasn't a popular job description today, Josephine thought. There was indeed a ledge up at the end of the ladder, a thin ledge that had a weak railings and a see-through floor. Jeez. They could see the contamination seal from where the ladder ended, but it was at least 100 meters away. Josephine felt her muscles freeze as she grabbed the thin metal tube. She knew she wouldn't fall, on some rational level at least. She couldn't care less about the rational level. Her feet would barely move, only by inches. Her breathing was so loud she could hear it echo from the walls. Down was so far away, the fact that she couldn't see it all the way there just made it worse. Her intestines felt like they were doing cartwheels. I forgot how much I hate heights. Want me to go first? No, if you try to pass me by, I'll die. Suddenly she felt a hand on her shoulder. The grip was firm and strong. You can do it, just keep going. And Josephine did. She kept her eyes set on the seal, a black lamp with some red lights on it. This is why we invented machines. For avoiding heights? Josephine laughed. Yeah, for that specifically. First we invented pipes so no one would have to climb the mountains for fresh water. And then everything else. Like airplanes and choppers and parachutes. Those we invented to weed out the stupid. You know, I was actually a paratrooper for a while. I thought you were an engineer. I had an eventful career. RANI's hand was very comforting. Chatting with her was likewise. By the end, Josephine almost wasn't mortified anymore. Thanks for coming up here. Thank you for taking me. I can't stand crowds. Me neither. Can you show me the light? RANI pointed a light to the contamination vent. Josephine was stunned. It couldn't be. Not so soon. And why here? There were no plans for this area. What is it? The vent is open. There's no water on either side. There's no contamination. We've just been cut off. What? Why? Before Josephine could answer, both their watches buzzed at the same time. It was from the water company. It was from NEPTIS. They climbed back down in silence and went back to the yard where all the people were. Water had been bought, but nobody was in an especially cheerful mood. Many had gone to their homes. The message had been brief, nothing but an automated signal from a bot. Dear residents, your water supply has been temporarily cut until company standards are met. We regret the inconvenience. Yours, NEPTIS Incorporated. Dear resident, the conditions of your water contract has been updated to match company standards. You can visit the new standards at mywater.com. Yours, NEPTIS Incorporated. It was ridiculous. The new company standards were personalised according to a customer's income situation, water consumption and other relevant factors. Soon enough it became evident what those factors were. Every single resident in the building had the same condition for water supply. Owner not reliable. Property must be owned by an insured and certified entity. See link for options. I checked the link. All of them are daughter companies of NEPTIS. Is the water company trying to buy the city? Not the city, just this building. The residents were getting riled up again, this time faster. This is criminal, we can sue them. I know why they don't trust us. It's because of the slut of 14B who spends hours in the shower. No, it's that old Thatcher and the bloody 15 dogs. Don't you blame my dogs, at least they shower. Oh. Can you make them shut up again? Sure thing. Shut up, let me just explain. Josephine found herself on top of the trash can once again. Stay calm everyone, I know why they do this. They want to buy the whole house. Someone stood up. Should we just sell? I know a site where you can sell your home in just free. Not if we want to live here. They want this spot, not this house. They're going to tear it down and build a water supply here. This shouldn't be happening. There has to be a mistake. There must be something we can do. If we can get NEPTIS to negotiate, can't we just get another water supplier, a competitor? What's that Mexican company? Tlaloc? I think that's a Shadowrun reference actually. Ask them for an offer, someone said. Someone began nodding approvingly. No use, NEPTIS owns Tlaloc, and well, they own every water supplier there is. How do you know so much about water companies? Because I work at NEPTIS. Aside from the predictable gaps, there was a disturbing silence. People looked at her the way they look at someone who maybe just made a bad joke, but it's hard to be sure. As I said, I'm a hydraulic engineer for NEPTIS. They just bought all the groundwater and all the water distribution in the city. They're drilling new wells. So you knew this was going to happen? No, I mean, not here. This wasn't supposed to happen even close to here. But it was going to happen to someone. You're not listening. We can't sell the house to them. We'll all be homeless. I don't know about you, but I can't afford another place. Maybe you should have thought about that before you let them do this. I didn't make this call. Though I did draw the plans for it and was proud of them, Josephine thought to herself. I honestly don't know what to tell you. NEPTIS is a bad company. This should not be happening. If we sell, I'll be homeless too. But you know these people, right? Could we use that? I don't think so. NEPTIS is run by good people, but their investors only see dollars and reputation. My niece is a reporter at Horse and Hound magazine. She can make a story about us, hurt their reputation. She might not have the sales to make us famous. Yes, she does. She won an award this year for Best Crossword. I'm sure she's a great reporter, Mr. Kendrick, and I like your idea even more. We can make this public. Why would we want to hear your idea? Someone shouted. Well, she's definitely smarter than you are, someone replied. Listen, if we can get water from somewhere and make the press get interested, they might back down and look for another place. At the very least, they will realise they can't pressure us and will offer us a decent price. You said yourself that would be stealing. Not if we collect rainwater. Nobody owns rainwater. And how would we do that? Place bucket outside for the night? Josephine thought for a while. In retrospect, she probably should have thought of a plan before she opened her mouth. She looked up. The shade umbrella, if we hack it, we can use it to direct water down on the yard. Into buckets? If we disinfect the trash containers, we can use them as water tanks. And if it doesn't rain, then we'll buy water in bottles until it does. Someone else got up again. That's stupid. We would break the house and then pay more for the company that's trying to screw us over. Yeah, how do we know you're not just trying to get us to go first so we'll have to sell our place cheap? Josephine had seen it coming. She needed to make them trust her. There really wasn't another way. If they stole water, the company would call the police. If they submitted, they would all be on the streets still without water. Josephine thought about the water thieves she'd seen in the morning and shuddered. Tomorrow she could be one of them. Her neighbours were clearly waiting for an answer. I know this is difficult. I don't know what will make you trust me, but what choice do we have? If we sell now, we'll all have to move downtown or live on the streets. I don't know who at Neptus made this call, but if we stick together, we can make that jerk lose their job. Neptus will realise their mistake sooner or later. But we have to pull together, we have to make a call, and everyone has to abide by it. They only need half of us and one to sell, and then they can evict the others. Please trust me. I've known Miss Lance since she moved in. I trust her. Mr. Kendrick sat back down with a very determined look on his face. The others were not very impressed. Josephine looked at RANI. RANI was the only person in the house she'd spoken to aside from Mr. Kendrick. RANI looked right back at her. Josephine realised she was being evaluated. Finally, RANI nodded and spoke. I went up to the maintenance with her. She was terrified of the dark and of heights. She wouldn't have gone if she were a spy. I believe in her plan. And another little intermission, so I'm going to take another sip. Oh, that's some good water. The shade made a large creaking noise as it opened. Josephine had always thought it looked terrifying from below. She was down with the others disinfecting the trash cans. All the trash had been dumped against the wall. Waste disposal was not a priority. At least not that kind of waste disposal. Many people had come to ask her how they would flush their toilets. Josephine had no answer yet. So far it was the easiest to just find a restaurant and use the toilet there. RANI was up on the roof. She had hacked the house easily enough, getting the shade to open despite the cold weather and the dark clouds. Josephine wasn't sure she actually had to be up there, but RANI seemed to enjoy a whiff of danger. With great moaning and complaining, the shade opened. At last it was spreading over the darkness like a black curtain. Only as the shade covered the sky did Josephine realise how late it actually was. She wasn't sure, but it was definitely past midnight. And yet almost everyone was still up and working. Even Mr. Kendrick was there, though he couldn't actually do much. But the spirit of resistance seemed unbroken. The residents were determined to stay and fight for their mouldy concrete home. Josephine's watch buzzed. RANI, what's up? The shade's up, that's what, but it's tilted the wrong way. What? It doesn't direct the water on the yard, but on the ceiling and... into the drain, that's right. Crap, can it be adjusted? Not without breaking something. Permission to break something? Are you sure it won't just crash down on top of us? No, could you evacuate the yard real quick, just for a while? I'm not sure I like this plan. Any other suggestions? Could we move the trash cans on the roof? Collect the water from there? It would be much less efficient. We would have to spread them. We would waste a lot of water. You're right. Fine. Give me a minute. She hung up and clapped her hands. People, Sergeant JANIS is going to tilt the shade. Let's move out of the way for a while. To her continued surprise, the residents did as she told them, hurrying indoors. Why are they following me? She thought. I'm the most suspicious person in the building. After helping Mr. Kendrick inside, Josephine took one last look up. The shade was large and heavy. Tilting it a bit should not be difficult. Not crashing it down might be. Josephine sat on the stairs next to a large family. The kids were clearly getting sleepy, but this must have been exciting for them. One little girl stared at Josephine with her big almond eyes. She was maybe 4 or 5. Josephine smiled at her. She responded by turning away and cuddling close to her mother. It was very quiet for a while. Josephine could hear traffic outside. All the drama unfolding in their little house, their struggles for water, none of it concerned the outside world in any way. Just about everyone in the city was either asleep or working a night shift, and no one knew what was going on. Just like we wouldn't have known or cared if this had happened to someone else's, Josephine thought. This had been her plan, she remembered. She had never spared a thought for the people who would have lost their homes to make way for the future. Her plans had been concerned with the building, not the people. And yet this was the way things had to be. This was progress, but did progress always come with such a steep cost? And did it have to? A loud noise woke her. Was that an explosion? The noise was immediately followed by a shrieking creak that made her cover her ears and cringe. The children began sobbing. The creak came together with a gust of wind that shook the windows and the glass doors. An old poster on the door came loose and flew away. The shade was tilting and pushing down air as it went. Her watch buzzed again. It was RANI. Come out and play, kids, the shade's been tilted. Is it safe? Quite possibly. RANI. Just kidding, I think it should be okay. I'll go round the roof and make sure it's not broken any more than we need it to be. Alright, thank you, RANI. Thank you for coming up with this plan. What's the next step? Next we pray for rain. They had to pray for a while. Though the sky was covered in dark clouds, there was no visible sign of any rain. As the night went on, the residents went back to their homes. Oh dear God, please give us rain, Josephine thought. She was wandering alone on the yard, watching the newly cleaned trash containers sit in the centre waiting for water to pour down. This had been the one weakness of her plan. Collecting rainwater only works when it rains. She saw RANI by one of the gateways. What are you doing? Sealing the doors. If this water thing works, who knows how Neptus will react? Come on, they're not going to bust in. We're not under siege, just under pressure. RANI gave her a look that mocked her naivety. I tried ordering a car full of water canisters from the market. They wouldn't sell. What was their excuse? They didn't make any. They just said they aren't allowed to sell any drinkable liquids to suspicious individuals. So now they're embargoing us. Seems that way. Look, I think your plan is good, but do we know what to do next? I hadn't thought of it. I thought building this water system would bring the people together and, I don't know. You wanted them to stop blaming you for this. Josephine sighed. Yeah, that too. Well, we might be able to outlast Neptus, but we really need a victory. If there isn't any water in the morning, someone is going to start thinking about selling. And if one person does, another will soon follow. We need to boost morale. Yeah, wait, I have an idea. Josephine opened her watch and dug up the company messages. What are you doing? They've asked us to sell the house and I think we should reply to them. Great cities are amazingly fast. The police showed up within half an hour. They had corporate security with them. Almost immediately after the media caught a whiff of the story and a few reporters began appearing on the scene. The police were insisting that the broken shade was a security hazard and that any water collected in the trash cans was contaminated. RANI wisely refused to let anyone enter the building, conducting negotiations from the gateway instead. It had begun in the early morning. The residents had worked until late in the night, but were still quick to get up and see what was going on. Josephine and RANI, having stayed up all night, gave them a simple instruction. Everyone was to reply, "We won't sell to Neptus. Let them know that we're all in this together." Of course, Neptus had already guessed that. Why else would they have put an embargo on the residents? Now they just wanted to subdue the people quickly. By sending that message together had felt like a victory to the people. Sticking it to the enemy had raised morale. As there was still no sign of water, Josephine told the people to make their plight famous. People used all their media tools as well as going old school, making banners and turning screens into neon signs that hung from the walls. Over the course of the morning, the resident building turned into a resistance fortress. The walls were covered in bright colours sporting slogans against corporate tyranny. To be exact, none of it had any effect whatsoever. Aside from a few curious onlookers, no one seemed to notice. People walked past. After all, it wasn't their problem and they were in a hurry anyway. But all the fuss had brought the police. The police came with just one armoured vehicle at first and observed the house. Soon private security units began showing up, surrounding the house with large armoured vans. Bright neon warning signs appeared and traffic was directed away from the house. Mass security guards with guns scared away the curious onlookers. But they also attracted the press. From the windows, Josephine could see shivering figures who seemed incredibly out of place with their cameras and recorders. They were looking for someone to interview, but the security guards wouldn't speak. The besieged residents couldn't, and the police was absolutely clueless. All the reporters could do was wait. Wait for someone from Neptus PR to show up, Josephine realised. As long as it didn't rain, time was on Neptus' side. What was that Francis said? Control of water is the most effective way to subdue a population. Josephine was beginning to see what it meant in practice. People who cannot wash or drink will yield eventually. The thirst was already getting to the people. They were talking less and bickering more. RANI was making them cover windows and blockade the doors. It was mostly to keep them busy. Someone should speak to the press. Yeah, but how? They won't let us. We could at least give them a face. Give someone a megaphone and speak out of a window. I take it you don't want to be the face of this? I'd rather disappear entirely. You could go. Yeah, but I work in the water industry. This will kill my career. If your career is to make people homeless, maybe you should reconsider. Your career was to kill people and you call it fireworks. Hey, whoa, no need to lash out. We're in this together. Sorry, I'm just really thirsty. Me too. My mouth is dry and this headache's a bitch. Dehydration sucks. Hey, let's use that. Use what? Film the people, the children, the elderly. Put it up somewhere and show that we're suffering. I like that. I'll ask around if someone has a camera. Thanks, I'll go rest for a while. Staying up all night was a bad idea. Do that. I'll get someone to handle the filming. Josephine scoured her fridge for something to drink. Finally she found ice cubes. Sucking on them made her feel better. Then she fell asleep. RANI had never really gotten to know her neighbours. Why would she? Her home was just a place for her to sleep in. But they were actually quite nice people. Mothers, clerks, retirees, even a couple of vets. She'd always hated the couple who held huge parties just above her place every weekend. Now that she'd actually spoken to them, she realised why they had so many friends. Both of the men were really friendly. One of them was playing with all the kids right now, in the warm afternoon sun. Mr. Kendrick, by far the oldest person in the building, was playing cards with the other old people. The yard was still full of people. Some even brought their screens so they could keep track of all the news channels. So far no news channel had mentioned them though. There was something comforting about all this. RANI was making rounds and giving orders. She felt like she was back in the force again. She kept a careful eye on the security guards. The cops were harmless, but corporate security guards always had guns. I probably know some of those grunts, she thought to herself. All the exits to the building had been sealed with furniture. The makeshift barricades made her feel more secure. She knew it was stupid. If someone really wanted to break in, they would find a way, and when that happened, there was nowhere to run or hide. Mr. Kendrick's Sergeant JANIS. Oh wait, Mr. Kendrick said that. Yeah, I thought it was a bit weird. Sergeant JANIS. What is it, Mr. Kendrick? Who was that pretty young engineer again? You mean Miss Slates? Josephine? Yes, her. What about her? Well, could you find her? She's resting right now. Can I help you somehow? No, I'm quite comfortable. It's just that she's on the news and she might be interested in that. Wait, what? RANI rushed to the nearest screen and frantically turned up the volume. Josephine woke up to the sound of it. At first she At first she thought she was dreaming, but no, she was feeling dizzy for sure. But the sound was real. She got out of bed and realised she was still wearing her shoes. Now she could see it. Her shower was dripping water. Just a drop every couple of seconds, but it was there. It was going to waste, was her first thought. Have I become this desperate so fast, was her second? She scrambled to the bathroom and slammed the buttons on the wall, ordering a shower. As soon as she heard the pipes roar, she burst into laughter. A thundering pour of steaming hot water came from the roof, soaking her all over. It felt so good. The warm water caressed her face, and finally she began to think clearly. Why was the water back on? Had they won? Maybe they'd gone public. She'd known Neptus would realise their blunder and retreat. Now all they had to do was negotiate. Her next few days at work would be tense though. She heard a loud banging on her door, followed by a frantic abuse of her doorbell. She left the shower on and went to the door, not even thinking that she was soaking wet. Behind the door was RANI. Josephine, the fuck are you doing? I was in bed. Is your bed a swimming pool? Dripping woke me up. I guess I got a little excited. That does look fun, Josephine. They promoted you. Oh wait, that does look fun. Josephine, they promoted you. Yeah, there we go. What? RANI didn't bother to explain. She just turned on Josephine's screen. And we're just about hitting the 1 minute point, so I'll... Can I save here quickly? Yeah, I can. So I'll save here real quickly. Can I go out here? Yeah. I'm really enjoying this so far. I have no idea how long the demo is, but I'm really having a blast reading this. It's very enjoyable in terms of the style and the story of it. I wish there was a bit more music to it, but maybe that'll change as we get a little bit more into the story, because this seems more like an introductory chapter. But I'm going to take a little break just so my voice can recover from all the reading, and then I'll get right back into the story because it's really interesting to me. And I hope you guys enjoy it so far, so I'll see you guys in just a second. And hello again and welcome back. We're going to continue on with Vengeful Heart. I had something to eat, something to drink. Took a little break, so now my voice doesn't feel like it's bursting into flames. And I'll probably be able to finish this in this little section now. RANI didn't bother to explain, she just turned on Josephine's screen. Chris, good evening, Channel 411 Metro News. I'm Chris Rivers. God, I love the buildings. That must have taken an absolute age to create properly. But that's really impressive. And I'm Tina McAllister. Good evening. I'm just going to turn it down a wee bit because it's a bit loud for me. First off, tonight, do you know who brings the water to your glass? Neptis Incorporated, a company that makes our shows run, is launching a new department. The city's water supply, which has been struggling to deliver for several years, was transferred to Neptis only 2 days ago. In an exclusive video interview with CEO Francis Brabeck, we were asking how will they manage. There he is, the smug bastard. Good evening, Mr. Brabeck. Good evening, Chris. The purchase 2 days past marks a watershed moment in how we get our water. What drove Neptis to make this decision? Money, mostly. Pun intended, Chris. You bet it was, Tina. Thank you, Chris. Like all things in the market economy, this process began with demand and also money. Lots and lots of money. The people of the city need clean water and they need more of it than the city can provide. Water is a basic requirement of life and we cannot watch from the sidelines as people go without it due to a bloated bureaucracy. Efficiency has always been our trademark and we want to improve the lives of everyone. You have referred to this purchase multiple times as a democratization of water. Could you explain this term to us? But of course, Cena, the way I see it, what happened 2 days ago was that the people won control of water from the government. What could be more democratic than that? Well, some activists have argued that privatizing public property erodes democracy rather than increasing it. I have heard these claims, Tina, and my understanding is that they have been made by a small, radical minority of students who opposes progress and innovation on ideological grounds. However, I understand their concern. But the people they should be concerned with are the bureaucrats who care more about keeping their well-paying jobs than doing them. What? Than keeping a well-paid jobs and doing them. Right, I read that correctly. It's sometimes a bit weird with the structuring of the sentences. If the control of water is in the hands of politicians, it can be used to further their agendas. We have no agenda. There is a demand and we supply. It is never in our interest to deny water from anyone. But just to play devil's advocate, thank you for this clarification, Mr. Brabeck, but the responsibility you have assumed is a huge one. This Neptis is up to the task. I am proud to say we are. Water infrastructure is a crucial element of urban planning. It is our top priority not to repeat the mistakes of the public sector. To that end, I'm glad to announce the creation of our new humane water department, which is tasked with ensuring that our distribution system is fair to everyone. Heading this new department is one of our rising stars and an expert in ethical business practices, Miss Josephine Lace. Ooh. Miss Lace is known for a strict commitment to ethics. In that way, she represents a new wave in corporate culture. Pun intended. Ooh, I'm putting a face on national telly. Oh boy. Aha, wow, well, I know I'll be sleeping better now that I can be sure my shower will work in the morning. Congratulations to Josephine Lace for this big promotion and thank you for this interview. Thank you, Chris and Tina, it's always a pleasure. Likewise, Mr. Brabeck, likewise. On to our next story. Could this new innovation costing just $100 change your life? Stay tuned to find out. Well, yeah, that's not going to bode well with the rest of the residents, is it? She was speechless for a while. How did they get Francis there? He's too smart to not to see through this. You know that man? He is my boss, the one who what? Who asked me out yesterday. Well, it looks like your boyfriend is with the enemy and the enemy is trying to divide us. Suddenly it was hard for Josephine to breathe. Could Francis be in on this? Could it be that Neptis wasn't going to back down? I'm the only one whose water is back on, am I not? I haven't checked, but my guess would be a definite yes. This is bad. Is it everywhere? On every channel, you need to go up there and talk to the neighbours in dry clothes. No, there's no hiding that my water works. They may have made a mistake. How come? This is genius. The neighbours think you're still with Neptus. Well, I haven't been fired yet. Trust me, no matter how this ends, you will be. They've realised you're leading this resistance. Yeah, anyhow, they've given us water. Do we have garden hoses? Yeah. Spray some on the yard. They're thirsty. Water will get their attention. We have to start storing this. I bet it won't last long. Rani's watch buzzed. Wait a second. Oh crap, what is it? Happy Veterans Day. In honour of those who have served the nation, we have launched our programme to help veterans reintegrate. You are eligible for applying. We salute you, Neptus. Today isn't Veterans Day. They're offering you a better deal for the apartment. Yeah, I bet they also have special offers for the elderly and big families and whatnot. They only need half of us and want to sell, then they'll have a majority in shares and they can evict everyone else. Is that really how it works? We need to hurry. No, I need to hurry. You can take a tall glass from my kitchen and get a drink of cold water, then get the hose. Oh, and one more thing. Thank you for not thinking I was a mole. If you really were one, they wouldn't tell us. Josephine stormed out, leaving RANI standing in her apartment. She shrugged and went to the sink. Why are you wet? Is it true your water's back on? Someone asked as soon as Josephine got to the yard. It is, but listen, the promotion is a fake. They're trying to divide us. Or maybe you're really the one behind this. You and that mercenary, an old woman yelled. You mean RANI? She's retired from service and she worked hard to keep us together and safe. Well, if you're not a traitor, then tell me, why shouldn't I sell? I'm a single parent with 4 kids. They made an amazing offer. I could move uptown. They're trying to get some of us to sell so they can throw the others on the street. What about the other families? They would be homeless. Not if we all sell. Josephine bit her lip in frustration. She couldn't believe the residents would fall for such an old trick. Everything Neptus had done suggested they would only buy the apartments they had to gain ownership. To many, that just sounded like there was no time to waste, especially now that there was a much better price to be gained. She would be on the streets no matter what. Her promotion may have been on the news, but if Neptus was playing like this, then her career was over. Don't you see, they're trying to divide us because they're afraid. They can only keep this house under siege for so long before someone begins to ask serious questions. And when that happens, Neptus will have lost. They can't afford to screw up the water reform. They've made too big a deal out of it. How are we supposed to believe you? Just trust me. We're winning this, we just have to. My children are thirsty, your plan failed. There will be rain eventually. What if it comes too late? And then water began falling down upon them. It wasn't rain, of course, it was RANI spraying water from Josephine's apartment with a hose that ran through her own. RANI hosed the entire yard, soaking anyone close with ice-cold water. The scream turned people around. In their urgent need to make us die of dehydration, Neptus has chosen to give us water. Come up and drink. Someone laughed and soon others joined. The situation began to diffuse as people now focused on the suddenly available water. A thirsty mass of them began to flood towards the stairs. RANI continued spraying with the hose, smiling all the time. The kids loved it and their parents hoisted them on shoulders so they could get wetter. Josephine had never been so relieved, her heart was still pounding. Wait. As one, the mass of thirsty people turned around and glared at her with murderous wrath. Go by your own homes and bring all your bottles, buckets and kettles. Take as much as you can store and make as many rounds if you must. If you have freezers, fill them with ice. The children will drink first. A thunderous screaming and laughter filled the yard. Then everyone scrambled for their apartments. Very soon Josephine was the only one standing on the grounds. She had won this round. If Neptus hadn't made the mistake of turning her water back on, she would not have. She was about to go to her place and help organise when someone tugged her sleeve. It was a small elderly woman clad in warm furs and wearing pearl earrings. Everything about her suggested she used to have wealth. Her clothes must have been expensive when she bought them, but they were clearly old. She carried no new technology. What is it? I hate to lose my apartment. I've been renting it to make money. I'm not even supposed to be here. I was just cleaning it up when this started. That's what we're trying to avoid. Could you put a good word for me at the company? What company? Netis, I sold my home just like they asked. But I want to keep renting it, it's my only income. Tell them I'm a decent woman, will you? You did what? Not so loud, Miss Lace, we have to keep this secret. You fucking idiot. Calm down, I got a good price. Listen, my son is in business school. Could you perhaps arrange an interview for him at Netis when this anarchy is over? Sure, absolutely. Listen, where do you live? A14, now my water came back on as well, but I don't really... A14 has water too. Head there if that's closer to your home. Miss Lace, this is very improper. You may do what you wish, but I will not let these people into my apartment. You betrayed us, you moron. You can bet we are going to pump as much water from your apartment as we can before they turn it off again. But I thought... Josephine grabbed her by the shoulder a lot harder than what's necessary and stared into her eyes. You thought wrong. The old madame from A14 did her best to protect the apartment that was no longer hers. But she was just one old woman and was quite literally carried out of the way. Some would say the fashion of which she'd lost her keys was pretty close to a violent mugging. As she couldn't be driven from the compound, Rani guarded her on the yard. She was smart enough to wait in silence. Meanwhile, the rest of the residents formed lines on the doors of the two apartments. The first with bottles and buckets, and then with kettles, boxes and even plastic bags. People ran between their own apartments and the two water sources, carrying either full or empty containers. As Josephine had suggested, freezers were filled with water that would be frozen by morning. Some put buckets in there, others just poured it in. The division had been overcome. People were much better inclined to trust each other now that they were no longer thirsty. It took more than 3 hours for Neptus to see what was going on and cut both water sources. By that time, the spirit of cooperation had prevailed, and as good neighbours do, those with more freely give to those with less. By the time the old woman could go back to the apartment, it had been vandalised. Josephine was not happy to see the graffiti on the walls or the broken furniture, or the fact that most of her stuff had been nicked. It was a shame. A14 was a nice apartment on the second floor with windows giving to the streets. Now it was a ransacked mess. But it did feel sort of justified, and in any case, the shared crime tightened the group in a very school bullies fashion, Josephine reminded herself. By nightfall, everyone had their share to drink and at least something in store for the next days. As there was not much food in the house, the residents formed small groups that cooked together out of whatever they had in store. Josephine ate together with Rani and Mr. Kendrick. It turned out Rani could make incredible, albeit very spicy food. The former sergeant smiled and whistled as she cooked rice with coconut curry, bits of tofu and tons of spices. Josephine watched her lower her guard for the first time. Rani always looked like she was ready to jump at anyone with lethal intent. Seeing her relax made Josephine loosen up too. Besides, Rani was really cute in her childish enthusiasm for cooking. It's about ready, Josephine. Would you get the plates? I have some wine in the fridge, but I think it's more appropriate if we celebrate with ice-cold water today. Every one of them was ravenous, so for a long time they ate in complete silence. The food was a heavenly wave of taste, sweet and hot, and somehow pleasantly soft at the same time. Rani was a soldier, but in Josephine's mind, she should have been a chef. Mr. Kendrick was clearly not used to spicy meals, but didn't complain either. The silence continued, interrupted only by the sound of chewing and drinking. From somewhere else in the building they could hear laughter and music. This is not right. What isn't? Something wrong with the food? We won today, didn't we? When I was serving, the only times we'd eat in silence was when we'd lost men. We did lose A14 and the woman there. Desertion doesn't mean losing strength. You only lose the ones you couldn't have trusted when things got rough. Agreed, Miss Lace. I must commend you on this victory. The siege is going better than any of the ones I ever was in. Where did you serve? Metropolitan Guards. It was a time of anarchy. Poor people were being pushed downtown, and some of them took up arms. We spent many a night shooting up sewers and alleys and houses just like this. You ever feel like you were on the wrong side? Only once. We were in the sewers trying to catch a group that was using them to sneak uptown and blow up rich folks. You didn't think they needed to be caught? Oh, I did, without a doubt, but there was more to it. There were refugees in the sewers, people who were evicted down from the hills. We tried everything: infiltration, denying them food or drink, divide and conquer. Their leader beat us every time. Must have been some man. It was a woman, and a young one at that. She reminded me of you, Miss Lace. Me? I don't blow rich people up. I'm really hoping to get rich one day, and I'm fighting so I don't have to live in the sewers. But you inspire them. Even when everything points to you being a traitor, you kept them on your side. I got lucky. Trust me, it isn't just luck. Your plan has given us hope, and now we have water to last for days. Mr. Kendrick isn't wrong, Joe. It's a miracle that only one person so far has given in. Josephine had never been called Joe before. It seemed way too casual for her, but she liked it. All this flattering made her squeezy, though. How did you beat the rebels in the sewers? We flooded them with tear gas and shot them as they got to the surface. That's the part I'm not proud of. I'm sorry I asked. No need to apologise, my dear. A man should stand by what he's done. I couldn't, so I left the army. RANI stared at her plate like it was the most hypnotic thing in the world. And then she looked at Josephine for a while, as though she was desperately trying to come up with a new subject. What are you going to do after this? I take it you'll be without a job. Well, I thought I wouldn't be until I saw my face in the news. They've targeted me. I guess I'll look for another engineering job. That's what I was trained to do. There are other water companies. Where though? In other cities mostly. I was fired this afternoon. Security officers are expected to show up to work in the morning. You know, if this siege was in any other building, I might be down there outside carrying a gun and wearing a mask. I take it you will be doing what you were trained to do as well? Yep, I guess I would. If I don't find another security job, I can always join the army again. They never stop needing people with my training. So neither of you pretty ladies will be here to keep me company afterwards. Now that's what I call a hollow victory. As Mr. Kendrick spoke, it finally began to dawn on Josephine that there was no going back. Her career was gone and Neptus had power. Only a very brave company would hire someone on their blacklist. She saw that RANI was having similar thoughts. The three of them sat in grim silence, eating the food that somehow tasted less good after these realizations. The only sound was rain drumming on the windows. Wait a minute, thought Josephine. It was raining. Her eyes widened and she stared at RANI, who was much slower to realise what was going on. When she did, RANI spat out her food. It's raining. They scrambled for the windows and opened them hastily. They were greeted by a wet gust of wind and the sound of thunder. It wasn't just raining, they'd been hit by a storm. Others were opening their windows too. On the other side of the yard, dozens of laughing and shouting faces looked. As the shade umbrella directed a river of rainwater straight into the trash. Trash containers. I missed that word there for a second. The yard had become a giant square-shaped waterfall. Josephine, it's working. She and RANI began to scream in excitement and soon found themselves hugging in their soaked clothes, all the while laughing hysterically. Mr. Kendrick approached, slowly as he always did, with the face of a puppy dog who just discovered snow. Laughing even louder, Josephine and RANI embraced the old man and began to laugh as well, with a warm boyish smile on his face. Josephine and RANI rushed down to the yard to see their contraption up close. The concrete was being bombarded by the heavy downpour and puddles were forming wherever the ground wasn't even. Many others had come down too, carrying their last empty pots and canisters. But mostly they had come to wonder at the great water tanks they had built. The umbrella brought down water in a smooth veil that condensed into rivers in the air, and all the rivers emptied in the tanks. It really does work. No one can see it in this weather, but Josephine was crying. Oh, look at her. She had studied engineering for years. She knew all about how water could be harvested, transported, stored and used. She knew how Roman aqueducts at work. She studied Mayan cisterns as well as the sewers of London and Chicago and the great baths of, Mohenjo-Daro. After graduation, she had designed mining operations, irrigation systems, the water pipes of skyscrapers and finally an entire city's water supply. But this simple contraption that only needed gravity to work was without a doubt her masterpiece. People were passing her on the back, but she hardly noticed them. Then when her watch buzzed, she checked the message and frowned. RANI was approaching her again, this time with a very playful look on her face. In a minute, I have to take this. And Josephine rushed to the eastern gate. Aside from RANI, no one noticed her enter the relative safety of the gateway. There was a barricade here too, made out of cardboard boxes full of bricks from the basement, sand and even old magazines. RANI had known what she was doing. Josephine thought before she remembered that RANI probably had a lot of experience tearing down roadblocks. The barricade was built almost until until the roof, but there were gaps in it for poking curious eyes with sharp sticks, as RANI had put it. Behind the barricade there was a man. "Miss Lace, I'm glad you came. I have to say this is not how I imagined our first date. You smug little shit." "Me neither, Francis. You have to make this stop. These are good people. They don't deserve this." "I thought we agreed on the plans, Miss Lace. You knew someone was going to lose their home because of them." "This is a megacity. There aren't any free spots of real estate to be used. It's progress. Have you lost your faith in what we do? This isn't what we were supposed to be doing. Do you know the saying about making omelettes? This house is the eggs. You should come with me." "Where to?" "Uptown, to your new job. Didn't you watch the news?" "Of course I did. That news could have gotten me lynched." "Josephine, have they threatened you? If that's the case, you must come with me." "How could I leave them now? They believe we can win." "You wouldn't be leaving them. The promotion was real, Josephine. The board wants to avoid things like this. I want you to make sure our company stays on the right track. Think of how many more good you could do in the gardens. We've already set up your new office. It's just across from mine. Ooh, on the top floor. Just like all the other department heads, your new salary would just let you live right next to the gardens, and you could help people, including your neighbours." "How come?" "The board realised cutting the water was a mistake. We can offer the residents generous rents in our other properties. All they have to do is sign a non-disclosure agreement." "No. All they have to do is move downtown and promise not to sue. We've just bought some new apartment blocks right next to the power plants and they can apply. I'll take the job." "You will?" "Yes, as you said, water is a human right. I'll start my work here, helping these people. It is immoral that you would cut their water to pressure them. Everyone here must have the chance to negotiate the sale of their home without pressure or extortion, and we must buy every apartment." "Every apartment, but the law only requires 51%. Then the law sucks. You want Neptus acts morally, don't you?" "Of course, but in a business sense. It is good to be known as the kind of company that doesn't throw people to the street." "Josephine, I'm not a dictator. I can just walk over the board and make deals that hurt our profits. And what's the purpose of my department if anything I propose can be struck down by just yelling profits? Josephine, you must be sensible. This transition is going to hurt some people. We can only minimise that pain." "Then let's minimise it. Do you hear the rain?" "I hear it. I see it. I feel it. Why?" "We just filled our water supply. If this siege goes on, Neptus is going to start looking like the villain sooner or later. As your leading expert on ethical business practice and the head of the humane water department, I've given you my suggestion for diffusing this standoff and maintaining our moral integrity. I recommend you take my advice and use your magic charisma on the board." "Josephine, please, just come with me and meet the board yourself. We can have dinner afterwards." "Thanks, but I already ate. The situation is pretty critical concerning my job, so I think I'll remain on the field for now." She gave him a defiant look and then the most innocent smile she could muster. "I'll gladly dine with you when my workload eases a little. Can I get a rain check on our date till then?" Francis said nothing. His expensive suit had been ruined by the weather. The rains were battering the streets behind him. Pun intended, of course. And Josephine walked away, dizzy with this newfound confidence. "Oh dear," she thought, "am I really the rebel leader now?" Well then. Just another sip of that delicious cold water. Oh, dear God, that's delicious. Out on the yard, many people had removed their clothes and were distributing soap. Some had brought out laundry or dishes. "The news said this rain is going to last until tomorrow, and now's the best chance to shower." "I already showered. I could use some champagne though." She pointed to one of the doorways where some men were popping open bottles of wine and champagne. Some of the people were clearly already drunk. Overflowing with happiness, Josephine joined the celebration by helping an older woman wash her plates. Whatever tomorrow would bring, the community they built today could weather it. Yeah, well, I don't think Neptus is going to wait till they get bad publicity. For many residents, tomorrow brought a devastating hangover. The celebration had continued until well in the night, but mostly inside. Standing outside in stormy weather is one of those things that are great fun for a little while and then very quickly really unpleasant. Josephine was among the last, making sure all the old women got their laundry and dishes done before retiring, shivering to her apartment. There she, RANI, Mr. Kendrick and a few others celebrated with wine, beer, champagne, vodka and some dark booze that Josephine didn't quite recognise. She fell asleep shortly before dawn, happy and drunk. Oh wait, it's no more. When she woke up, everything hurt. Turning on one side made her nauseous, but lying on the back made her head spin. The headache was indescribable. With great effort, she rose to a sitting position and looked around. There were empty bottles and cans everywhere. Good, we can store water in those, she thought. RANI was sleeping on the shower floor, lacking a blanket but wrapped in Josephine's winter coats. Josephine laughed a bit, but that made her nauseous again. She scrambled to the toilet to throw up. She was there quite a while. When RANI woke up, they had to take turns for a while. Soon enough, life won her over. The two drank water by the litres and ate sturdy breakfast. After coffee, they felt better. The house was very quiet. Josephine wanted to check the water tanks, so she and RANI wandered down the hallway and to the elevator. Josephine's big worry was that the tanks might not be waterproof. One little hole could undo their victory. To Josephine's great surprise, the yard was full of people, but no one go near the tanks. The water tanks were standing and full to the brim with fresh rainwater, but they were surrounded by a wall of armed security guards. Clad in grey riot gear and their faces covered by protective masks, all of them pointed assault rifles at the crowd. There wasn't a police officer or reporter in sight. The entire yard stood still in absolute silence. It was still raining. What is this? The house is private property. You have no right to be here. One of the security guards turned to her and put on the mic in his helmet. We have been called here to protect the property of Neptus Incorporated from any and all threats by any means necessary. And you may do that. Neptus Inc. owns apartment A14. I can show you to it and you can protect it from within. You are mistaken. We have been ordered to recover all the stolen water resources that rightfully belong to Neptus Incorporated. The water in those tanks is rainwater, and rainwater is no one's property. You are mistaken. Neptus Inc. has purchased all water in the city. They cannot buy the rain. They have. No law prohibits this practice. This has to be illegal. I'm going to call the police. You're breaking the law. You are mistaken. Our unit has been deputized to aid the police department in its efforts to end the rampant rioting and vandalism in this district. Wait, so you are the police? Correct, miss. Please stand further back. The security officer turned up the volume in his mic. A loudspeaker somewhere repeated his words. Residents, please return to your homes. Officers of the law will now proceed to demolish all roadblocks. Then we will visit every apartment to confiscate any stolen water and arrest all suspected thieves. Anyone found guilty will be subject to eviction. Yeah, I thought they wouldn't just sit back and let them protect their homes. RANI pulled Josephine back. How are we this hungover? How is that your primary concern? Yesterday there was nothing to drink in the building and this morning everyone has a headache. Think. Are you saying someone brought the booze here? Yes, and there's more. I don't recognise everyone here. How is that new? Hundreds of people live here. I mean, there are faces I've never seen before. Anyone could have snuck in during all the showering and celebrating. How? We blocked all the exits. Then it hit her. A14 has a window to the street. And the resident who hates us, I think we might be in danger. We'll be fine. There's no way this behaviour is going to stand in court. These people aren't real police, Joe. I think we can get out through the basement. No way, we're leaving now. They stepped over the line. Mr. Kendrick appeared next to them. I think Sergeant JANIS is right, my dear. You two should get out of here. I'm not leaving all of you. And then do it for us. If they arrest you, you can't keep up the fight. JANIS can't protect you. Old Kendrick had never seemed so resolute or lucid. Was he somehow no longer senile? Mr. Kendrick, I'm Captain Kendrick and you will pull back now. We've lost this battle, but we need you to win the war. Go before they take you. There was a gunshot. People screamed and ducked for cover. Josephine turned to the doorway to see a man standing at the door to the staircase. A man with a smoking gun in his hand. Oh, did she get shot? Death to the police, the man shouted before firing again in the air and running back inside. Oh, that makes sense. Josephine rushed back to the front row and waved her hands. This was getting out of control. That man definitely did not live here. The guards instantly removed the safety from their guns. Josephine, stop, let the police pass. The shooter fled inside. We don't want any harm to anyone. There's no need for violence. She couldn't see it, but she could have sworn the guard smiled. You are mistaken. The guard shot her in the chest. Yeah, I thought so. I thought that was going to happen. So in other words, Netis probably hired that bloke to entice the guards to give them a reason to shoot back. As he fired, all the other guards joined up, spraying the yard with automatic fire. Screams and gunshots formed a deadly choir that echoed from the walls as bodies began falling down. Mr. Kendrick grabbed Josephine and dragged her towards the doors. He was gunned down halfway. The old man fell on top of Josephine. The last thing she saw was the guards turning over the water containers. All the water they collected washed over the yard and into the sewers. The shooting continued. Some tried to get out of the building. They were met at the gates by a new wave of guards shooting at them. There, the single mother who had 4 children died. 2 of the children didn't. The guards followed the people indoors, keeping up the fire. Mrs. Thatcher was shot in the hallway. All 15 dogs were killed later in her apartment. Oh, jeez. The young woman in apartment B14 was still in bed when the door was breached. Or when her door was breached. She panicked and ran from the window, but was tased on the floor. She was among the lucky ones who were just arrested. Out in the yard, bodies piled up around the tanks, and eerie quiet reigned. All of it was over in a few minutes. Anyone still alive huddled in some corner waiting for arrest. There was blood everywhere. It formed puddles where the ground was uneven and it filled all the cracks in the concrete. It mixed with the poured over rainwater that was still lingering around the clogged up sewer entrance. Whatever had begun there 2 days ago was now definitely over. Oh, was that it maybe? Oh, maybe not. The room was white and reeked of chemicals. There was a small window, but almost all light came from the ceiling, which was one huge cold lamp. There were 9 beds in total in the room. Josephine woke up in one of them. She wasn't in pain that worried her. Her bed was comfortable, but the sheets had a plastic feel to them. Directly across from her was a black screen with green numbers. The last number went up every now and then. Her brain felt like someone had poured cement all over it. For a while, all she could do was watch the numbers. 51,465.89, 51,465.90, 0.91. Slowly she began to form lines of thought. She realised she was in a hospital and instinctively put her hand to her chest. There was only cold metal where her chest used to be. A slender tube came out of it and went somewhere. She grabbed it. I wouldn't touch that if I were you. That tube is keeping you alive. Josephine turned to see a friendly-looking man lean over her bed. That's a dude? Really? Oh, I thought that was a woman for a moment. Where am I? Where are the others? And who are you? Norbert, try to stay calm, or it will take you a while to wake up completely. You are at the Jenner Private Hospital. You were brought here by ambulance some 4 months ago. Jeez. 4. She didn't finish that sentence, speaking hurt. Try not to talk much here. Have some water. Delicious water. Talking about water, I'll finish my delicious bottle of cold, refreshing bottled water. Oh, that's the good stuff. Josephine drank from the glass that was offered to her. Somehow drinking water felt like sacrilege. You might not remember it, but you were caught in an exchange of shots between the police and a group of domestic terrorists. You were gravely injured. I remember all right, just a bit differently. What about the others? I can't give you any names, but from what I saw on the news, fighting was fierce in the crowded yard and the narrow corridors. The police took no casualties, but it's believed that all terrorists were among the 57 killed, 72 more people were injured, such as yourself. Jeez. 57. The loss must be heavy. In case you're interested, we offer quality therapy, both private and in group sessions at affordable prices. Shut up, I need to think. Is there a list of casualties? I want to know who I lost. I'll see if I can find you one. Now about your injuries. Who are you? How long do I have to be here? Please listen, as I was saying, I'm Dr. Norbert MATURANA, a cybernetic specialist. Cybernetics. Based on your wounds, you were shot in the chest with an automatic weapon from an extremely close range. It's a miracle you aren't dead. However, we had to replace part of your lungs, several arteries, bits of 4 ribs, and your entire heart with cybernetic implants. Oh geez, that might be why the price is so high, isn't it? Yes, the operation was difficult and had to be completed in multiple stages. We were thus forced to keep you in a coma for most of the past months. I'm glad to see you have fully woken up and seem lucid. Now if you'll let me do some basic tests. Wait, what's that? She pointed at the box with numbers. That's probably the cost of being in hospital. Oh, that's the new feature in this section. It shows you the hospital bill in real time. Try not to get stressed by it. I can also cover it if you want. Yeah, I figured as much. No, it's fine. Do your tests. She'd been shot. All her neighbours were either dead, in jail, or out on the streets without homes. She spent 4 months in a coma. Neptus had run out of legal ways to fight them. Instead of backing down or paying a bit extra, they decided to kill everyone. Francis must have known this would happen. Francis must have made a call. The man who had asked her out and ordered her murdered 2 days later. And the world thought it had been terrorists. And now she was a cyborg with no job, no home, and thousands in debt. And all she could do was lie in the bed and stare at the bill as it grew. 51,458.2, 51,458.3, 51,458.4. Damn right she was getting stressed. Oh jeez, that was it. Oh man. Well, a good thing I did a little break when I did, because it was a good 35 minutes before we got to the end. What to expect in the full version of Vengeful Heart, about 100,000 words of thrilling story about revenge and companionship, we lovingly crafted for you. 2 romance options, 1 male and 1 female, so that's probably RANI and the Dr. Norbert, probably. She probably won't go for a boss because he's a bit of a prick. 2 morally ambiguous and thought-provoking endings, lots and lots of pixel art, original score. Note, by using HIO's optional payment system, if you spend $5 or more on this demo, you will get Vengeful Heart for free when it's finished later this year, or early next year. You will get both Steam and itch.io copies. We sincerely hope you enjoyed what we have created. Thank you for reading. Can I click on? Oh, and that brings me back to the intro screen. Yeah, that was a fun little read. That was incredibly long for a demo, Jesus. That was feature-length movie long. But yeah, that's a pretty good story. I loved all the artwork in it. It's that particular style that just really isn't used anymore, and it's just absolutely wonderful. I really hope I'll get to play the full version of this someday. I'll probably wait till it comes out, and if the developers are okay with it, I'll do a full read-through of it, and then just upload one massive video of it, because I think I can upload 11 hours in one go. But yeah, that was a fun little thing. Really enjoyed it. Love the artistic style of it. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So I think that'll be it for this little video. So I hope you enjoyed this little playthrough of Vengeful Heart. I'll put the link in the description below, as usual, so you can maybe buy it for $5 and you'll get the full edition for free and help the developer keep creating this game and probably finish it. I don't know if they're going to start a Kickstarter or whatever to get extra funds or whatever they need to finish it, but it'll probably be on the itch.io page, so I'll put that in the description. Yeah, so I'll see you guys in the next episode, and that was about it. So yeah, goodbye for now.